To uncover your true potential, you must first find your own limits, and then you have to have the courage to blow past them. Welcome to Jim's Talk Podcast. Reading with Jim, the first book we read is Hidden Potential. Hello, I am Jim. Welcome to Jim's Talk in the Book. Today, the book I'll be interpreting for you is one published in the United States in 2023. Its title is Hidden Potential. The subtitle translates to The Science of Achieving Greater Things. What does potential mean in the title? In a context, perhaps many of us have heard teachers and parents say something like, "Your child has great potential. Just work hard and they'll surely get into a top school." So, what's the implied message from the teacher? It's that the child is intelligent but lacks effort. Here, the teacher equates potential with talent. However, this book argues that this is a common misconception. We often focus too much on a person's starting point, on immediately visible abilities. But that's not what this book is about. It's about hidden potential. What stories about hidden potential will we find in this book? For example, a mediocre athlete, by other standards, surpasses a genius athlete in performance. There's also someone who initially struggled to learn a second language, but later becomes fluent in 6 languages within a few years. And even a deaf person who later becomes a world-class musician. These individuals lacked advantages in terms of talent, and some even had disadvantages. However, their stories convey what the author wants to emphasize. Everyone has hidden potential. The key is how to unlock it. Your potential isn't determined by your innate abilities, but by how far you can go after starting. We've discussed the book, The Genius Myth, before, which showed that in recent years, more and more experiments have shown that the so-called genius myth is just an illusion. This book adds to that with a study where scholars investigated 120 outstanding sculptors, pianists, mathematicians, neuroscientists, and athletes who had won many awards. The results showed that only a small minority of them demonstrated exceptional intelligence or talent in childhood. Most were not outstanding as children, and some might have even started off behind. So, the chief psychologist of this study concluded, if there's one person in the world who can learn a certain knowledge or skill well, it means that everyone else in the world can learn it too, as long as they have suitable learning conditions. So, today's book is about revealing how to create these conditions. The author of this book, whom you might be familiar with, is Adam Grant, a professor at the Wharton School and an organizational psychologist. He's written many books, some of which we've reviewed before. Like Originals, the Wharton School's most popular success course, Option B, and Think Again. Adam Grant himself is quite remarkable. Not only does he teach, conduct research, and write books, but he's also a popular speaker and hosts 2 podcasts, one monthly and one weekly. It sounds like he's already good at unlocking his own potential. But wait, after reading this book, I found out that he's also a national-level diver. How he managed to become a diver, we'll discuss later. So, the author himself is someone who has fully tapped into his hidden potential. The advice given in this book isn't just based on extensive literature research, random experiments, and quantitative analysis, but also on his own effective practices and experiments. The first research finding the author presents to us in the book is about the importance of personality as a skill for unleashing potential. This might sound a bit strange at first, so let's discuss an experiment. Character is a skill. This experiment was conducted in Tennessee, USA, covering over 11,000 kindergarten students. They observed the impact of kindergarten teachers on these students' future incomes as adults. The results showed that students who had more experienced teachers in their early years would earn significantly more money as adults compared to their peers. Specifically, a kindergarten teacher with above-average experience could potentially add $320,000 in additional lifelong income to a child. Now, Why would the experience level of kindergarten teachers have such a long-term impact on children's incomes? Initially, one might think that experienced teachers could better help children develop cognitive skills like numbers, words, and reading. However, later research by Chetty's team found that this wasn't the case. The greatest impact experienced teachers had on children was actually in terms of personality traits. These traits include 1. Initiative, willingness to ask questions, answer questions, and seek information actively. 2. Sociability, ability to interact and cooperate well with peers. 3. Discipline, ability to focus attention effectively in class without disrupting order. 4. Persistence, willingness to persevere in the face of challenges and difficulties. When children were taught by more experienced teachers, their performance in these 4 aspects of personality was better, and these personality traits had a greater impact on their future income compared to mathematical or reading abilities. Statistically, these traits were 2.4 times more important than reading and math scores. This research conclusion might surprise many because, during early childhood education, the emphasis tends to be more on developing cognitive abilities, while the importance of shaping personality is often overlooked. So, if you have children, you might want to pay more attention to fostering their initiative, sociability, discipline, and persistence. The book also mentions a study in the field of chess. Scholars found that for beginners in chess, intelligence does play a role in learning speed. However, for someone who is already a skilled chess player, the influence of intelligence on their chess performance becomes minimal. This aligns with the findings of the earlier kindergarten experiment, indicating that cognitive abilities may provide an advantage in the early stages but diminish over time. So, these experiments tell us that whether a person can excel as they grow up doesn't solely rely on talent or even cognitive ability, as many might think. The importance of personality becomes more prominent as people age. Whether you're trying to solve puzzle after puzzle on a chessboard or tackling challenges in your career, personality has a significant impact. But some might say, I'm already grown up, maybe even middle-aged. Is it too late for me to develop my personality traits? Over 200 years ago, psychologists indeed proposed that by the age of 30, one's personality would solidify like plaster and become difficult to change. However, recent experiments have shown otherwise. For instance, around 2020, social scientists recruited 1,500 entrepreneurs in West Africa. These individuals, both male and female, were between 30 and 50 years old. They divided these entrepreneurs randomly into 3 groups. The first group served as the control group, receiving no intervention. The second group received cognitive skills training, such as learning about finance, accounting, human resources, and marketing. The third group received personality skills training, focusing on initiative, discipline, and determination. After the training, these entrepreneurs returned to continue running their businesses. The results showed that the entrepreneurs who received personality skills training saw their company's profits increase by an average of 30% over the next 2 years, triple the earnings of the cognitive skills training group. Why is that? Scholars explained that while knowledge might help entrepreneurs seize opportunities, personality enables them to create opportunities. They become more proactive in developing ideas, introducing new products, and predicting market changes rather than merely reacting to them. When faced with difficulties, they don't give up but resiliently seek various solutions. So, this experiment not only highlights the importance of personality skills once again, but also tells us an important thing. It's never too late to develop these skills. You might have noticed that we've been using the term personality skills instead of simply saying personality. That's because the book emphasizes that personality, like a skill, is malleable and trainable. Moreover, the personality mentioned here isn't the same as temperament. Temperament is an instinct you're born with, but personality is the ability to place your values above your instincts. For example, when faced with challenges, your instinct might be to retreat or give up, but if you've cultivated a resilient personality, it will encourage you to persist. So, if your inherent temperament only gets you up the first hill on life's journey, developing personality skills might enable you to conquer the second. Third, and even more hills. Alright, now that we've clarified the importance of developing personality skills, which personality skills should be prioritized when it comes to unleashing hidden potential? Embrace discomfort. First and foremost, there's courage, which the author calls embracing discomfort. Let's start with a real story. The protagonists are Maria and Benny, both what we might call language prodigies, fluent in 5 or 6 languages, with a few more at a conversational level. They learn these languages relatively quickly. Maria learned 6 new languages from scratch in less than 10 years. Benny, on average, takes less than 5 months to learn a language. But were they naturally gifted with languages? Not quite. For instance, Maria struggled with Spanish for 6 years during her childhood. Benny spent 11 years learning Irish but couldn't speak it well. So, how did they become proficient in languages as adults? Despite the common belief that children learn languages fastest, these two seem to have a breakthrough in adulthood. How did they manage that? After learning about Maria and Benny's stories online, the author was determined to find out. What he discovered was that what propelled them to success, the key to mastering their first language, wasn't overcoming some cognitive hurdle but rather starting to embrace discomfort. For example, when Maria began learning foreign languages, she spent hours reading, memorizing vocabulary, and doing exercises. However, she was hesitant to speak because she felt her skills were inadequate and feared sounding foolish. So, she stayed within her comfort zone, reading and writing but not speaking. It wasn't until she went to college and studied linguistics that she realized her approach was wrong. It's like reading a bunch of books about skating and expecting to pull off a perfect triple axel. It's just not feasible. If you want to master a language, you have to speak it aloud. So, she started seeking opportunities to practice speaking, and that's how she finally mastered Spanish, a language she had struggled with for so long. Embrace discomfort. First and foremost, there's courage, which the author calls embracing discomfort. Let's start with a real story. The protagonists are Maria and Benny, both what we might call language prodigies, fluent in 5 or 6 languages, with a few more at a conversational level. They learned these languages relatively quickly. Maria learned 6 new languages from scratch in less than 10 years. Benny, on average, takes less than 5 months to learn a language. But were they naturally gifted with languages? Not quite. For instance, Maria struggled with Spanish for 6 years during her childhood. Benny spent 11 years learning Irish but couldn't speak it well. So, how did they become proficient in languages as adults? Despite the common belief that children learn languages fastest, these two seem to have a breakthrough in adulthood. How did they manage that? After learning about Maria and Benny's stories online, the author was determined to find out. What he discovered was that what propelled them to success, the key to mastering their first language, wasn't overcoming some cognitive hurdle but rather starting to embrace discomfort. For example, when Maria began learning foreign languages, she spent hours reading, memorizing vocabulary, and doing exercises. However, she was hesitant to speak because she felt her skills were inadequate and feared sounding foolish. So, she stayed within her comfort zone, reading and writing but not speaking. It wasn't until she went to college and studied linguistics that she realized her approach was wrong. It's like reading a bunch of books about skating and expecting to pull off a perfect triple axel. It's just not feasible. If you want to master a language, you have to speak it aloud. So, she started seeking opportunities to practice speaking, and that's how she finally mastered Spanish, a language she had struggled with for so long. So, Maria and Benny share a significant characteristic. They actively seek discomfort. For example, Maria moved to Madrid and got a job teaching English, actively choosing to live with a Spanish-speaking family. By the end of that summer, she was fluent in Spanish. Also, Maria's fiancé is Chinese, and his family speaks Cantonese. So, she set herself a challenge to speak a toast in Cantonese at her wedding, forcing herself to improve her Cantonese skills. Then there's Benny. Benny takes embracing discomfort to another level. He embraces awkwardness. Benny used to be socially awkward, but to practice languages, He not only initiated conversations and small talk but also sang local songs to locals. He gave this behavior a heroic name: social parachute. Of course, he encountered many awkward moments and made many mistakes during these interactions, like introducing himself with the wrong gender or calling scenery buttocks. But Benny was actually happy during these times because he saw every awkward moment and mistake as an opportunity for improvement. He even set a goal to make at least 200 mistakes every day. He measured his progress by the number of mistakes he made. So, the author suggests that when starting to learn a skill, don't wait until you feel ready to start using it or practicing it. If you do, you're just spoiling yourself. You won't wake up one day suddenly feeling ready. What's the right way? This sentence from the book puts it nicely. We become prepared by taking the leap anyway. In other words, it's not about being ready before you act, but acting so you can truly become ready. No matter what, take that first step before anything else. Become a man of sponge. Alright, let's delve into another personality skill: becoming a human sponge. This concept fascinated me when reading the book. When we hear sponge, we might think of the kitchen cleaning tool, but here we're talking about an animal, one of the oldest on Earth. Sponges survived a mass extinction event 500 million years ago and thrived in the oceans. These creatures resemble bushes and remain almost entirely stationary, absorbing and filtering water and nutrients through their outer walls, then expelling them through tiny, mouth-like structures. This absorption, filtering, and adaptation ability enables sponges to flourish in harsh environments, some surviving over 2,000 years. For humans, this absorption, filtering, and adaptation capability is crucial. It's not just a metaphor but a personality skill, actively absorbing and filtering surrounding information, vital for uncovering hidden potential. Now, let's discuss the story of a real-life human sponge, Julius, a javelin thrower from a poor village in Kenya. Despite his less-than-ideal physique, Julius excelled in javelin throwing. Contrasted with Ihab, an Egyptian javelin thrower with a better physique, Julius initially lagged behind. However, after 8 years, Julius surpassed Ihab, winning a gold medal at the 2011 All-Africa Games. Analyzing Julius and Ihab's performance curves, we notice a significant difference. While Ihab's performance fluctuated, Julius steadily improved. The key lies in how they absorbed information. Ihab passively absorbed information, doing what coaches instructed. In contrast, Julius took charge of his growth, actively seeking and absorbing any information that could help him, such as studying top javelin throwers' videos online for self-training. To become a human sponge, 2 key points are essential: actively seeking new knowledge rather than passively waiting, and effectively filtering information, retaining only what aids personal growth. A practical tip from the book: instead of seeking feedback, seek advice. For instance, the author, initially an introvert, became a popular speaker not only by embracing discomfort and practicing speaking but also by absorbing various useful information. After speeches, rather than asking, "How did I do?" the author asked, "How can I improve?" to receive more constructive feedback. This mindset focuses on becoming better in the future rather than dwelling on past mistakes. That's it, don't give feedback, just give suggestions. This way you will get a more constructive answer. This is a kind of sponge thinking. Just don't dwell on what you did wrong in the past, but focus on how you can do better in the future. Be an imperfectionist. Alright, let's talk about another personality skill: being an imperfectionist. When we think of imperfectionism, we might immediately recall the phrase, "Done is better than perfect." This phrase emphasizes how imperfectionism in learning or work can often enhance efficiency and speed up iterations. But how does imperfectionism relate to unlocking hidden potential? Or, in what ways does perfectionism restrict our potential? The book discusses 3 common mistakes perfectionists make. Firstly, they get caught up in trivial details, neglecting progress towards the bigger picture. Secondly, they prefer solving simple problems because they can achieve perfection, which makes them averse to risk and reluctant to tackle challenging tasks or develop new skills. Thirdly, perfectionists often dwell on their mistakes, blaming themselves rather than focusing on learning and growth from those mistakes. These tendencies limit the realization of our potential. If perfectionism were a drug, its label would warn of a common side effect: stunted growth. The author shares how he transitioned from being a perfectionist to an imperfectionist, which also addresses the curiosity about how he became a national-level diver. The author's journey began in high school when he encountered diving. As a diligent student, he had perfectionist tendencies, striving to eliminate all errors. When he started diving, he applied this mindset to practice, aiming for flawless execution and a splash-free entry into the pool. However, he found his progress slow due to this perfectionism. He spent hours trying to eliminate splashes rather than challenging himself with more difficult dives. He repeatedly focused on the most basic dive, entering the water vertically, never attempting more challenging ones. Sometimes, he spent 45 minutes pacing on the diving board, obsessing over minute details instead of taking the plunge. His coach eventually advised him that he was hindering his progress by freezing himself in perfectionism. To improve, he needed to overcome this perfectionism. So, how does one change perfectionism? The book offers a method derived from extensive empirical evidence. Aim for high standards, not strict requirements. Focus on a challenging goal and strive towards it, rather than obsessing over whether each action is perfect in the pursuit of that goal. Returning to the author's diving story, his coach informed him that there's no such thing as perfect diving. Even in the Olympics, a perfect score of 10 doesn't represent perfection but rather excellence. The author began to change his mindset. He told himself, "I don't need to be perfect. I just need to aim for a clear high goal and challenge myself towards it." Consequently, he no longer avoided difficult dives but started pushing his limits. He also stopped blaming himself for mistakes and instead focused on how to improve next time. With this mindset shift, the author's progress in diving accelerated rapidly, and he entered the ranks of national-level divers before graduating from high school. That's the story of the author's transformation. In this book, he also addresses a common concern of perfectionists: what if others think poorly of my abilities if I fail? Here, the author provides reassurance based on research findings. When people assess someone's abilities, they tend to focus more on that person's peaks rather than valleys. For example, we all know Shakespeare as a great playwright, a genius even. But if I mention these play titles, All's Well That Ends Well, Timon of Athens, The Merry Wives of Windsor, do they sound familiar? These are actually some of Shakespeare's less remarkable works. We don't judge Shakespeare by these, instead, we judge him by his best works. Therefore, people judge your potential based on your best moments, not your worst. Moreover, as many people say, you don't actually need to care too much about how others perceive you because pleasing everyone is impossible. You should aim to please yourself most of all. So, on the path to excellence, the author suggests we frequently ask ourselves this question: if this were the only work people saw from you left in the world, would you be proud of it? This question interrogates our inner selves. Our pursuit of excellence should not be to meet others' expectations but to reach the standards set by our own hearts. The deliberate play. So, what we've discussed is the character skills needed in the process of unlocking potential. However, having character skills alone isn't enough. You also need motivation. This is similar to a car. Good performance alone isn't sufficient. You need to fill it with gas to go far. So, how do you inject yourself with powerful motivation? Encouraging yourself, setting rewards, or external motivation methods aren't the answer. These rely on external stimuli. Instead, this book suggests finding intrinsic motivation, which is continuous. It's like a car that doesn't need refueling from the outside. It continuously fills its tank as it moves forward. How do you achieve this? The method can be summed up in one phrase: deliberate play, not deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is already a well-known concept, which we emphasized in The Talent Code. This concept primarily stresses that when practicing a skill, you should have clear goals, aiming for targets beyond your current ability. Once achieved, you move immediately to the next level, repeating this cycle. However, this process is often arduous, which can make it difficult for people to persist. This is why many people know about deliberate practice, but only a few reach an excellent level. Therefore, A better approach is to inject enjoyment into this deliberate practice process, turning it into deliberate play. Here's an example we mentioned earlier, how a deaf girl became a world-class musician. This girl is Evelyn Glennie, the world's first full-time solo percussionist, winner of 3 Grammy Awards, and the first percussionist to receive the Polar Music Prize, often referred to as the Nobel Prize of Music. So, how did she do it? Throughout her musical journey, she approached it with a gaming mindset. For example, she imagined her entire body as a giant ear, feeling the vibrations different pitches produced in different parts of her body and connecting them. High notes resonated in her face and neck, while low notes reverberated in her feet and legs. Additionally, she continually leveled up her games. At first, she could only roughly distinguish pitch, but over time, she became increasingly precise. Eventually, she could discern notes solely by the vibrations in her fingertips. Her coach constantly varied tasks and raised standards, for example, having her interpret classical music in a modern style, ensuring she never got bored. She said, "For me, there is no difference between enjoyment and effort." Evelyn's training process embodies many typical elements of deliberate play, such as making training fun, diversifying methods, and continually raising the bar. In healthcare, arts, and athletics, among many other fields, these methods have proven effective in significantly improving learning outcomes. The author also mentions another excellent example from a basketball coach named Brandon. This coach designed a game activity menu for his players, constantly challenging them in various ways. For example, players had to score 21 points within a set time, using three-pointers, jump shots, and layups, but they had to run to the center of the court and back after each score, simulating the breathlessness of a real game. Then, he gradually shortened the time, making the game increasingly challenging. Moreover, throughout the deliberate play process, it's essential not to stick to one game. If you start feeling bored, switch it up quickly. For example, Evelyn would switch instruments whenever she got bored, playing different percussion instruments. Similarly, the basketball coach wouldn't have players focus solely on one skill before moving to the next. He'd mix challenges for different skills together. For example, he might have players complete several different game challenges within 20 minutes. There have been hundreds of experiments showing that when people alternate between different skills, they progress faster. This applies not only to music and sports but also to fields like painting and mathematics. Even small changes can be effective, like switching between thinner and thicker paintbrushes or slightly adjusting the weight of a basketball. The basketball coach's training was also highly effective. With his help, one player, who was shorter and weaker than his peers, grew into one of the world's most famous and award-winning basketball players, Stephen Curry. Of course, not everyone training like this can become Curry. However, this approach can indeed better unleash your potential. For example, an ordinary person spent 2 hours a day imitating Curry's training. At first, his three-point shooting percentage was only 8%. But after 50 days, it reached 40%. So, although people often say, "No pain, no gain," scientific research tells us that the fastest way to unlock potential isn't through suffering but by turning that suffering into enjoyment. I particularly like the phrase used in this book, play by play. Yes, our process of progress shouldn't be about painfully persevering day by day but about evolving through play by play. Well, that's all for today's book discussion. Congratulations, you've completed reading another book. And hope you all gain a lot from this video. Thank you for watching. I am Jim. See you on the next book.